What's up, guys? Herschel, Dragon Rose, James, Chef Pete, Joe, Lunging Mule, Daryl, Michael W. Quantum. We got Joey, Jorge, Sacha. What's up, Miss Honeybee, Steve in England, GR Hutch. How you doing, guys? Good evening. Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? If I missed anybody, I'll circle back around and say hi. Hope everybody's well tonight. Over to Rumble real fast. Nostradamus Hiker is here. Good evening, guys. Hello is not available. And you. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening now.
I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know whether rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest. Into the digital darkness. Well, good evening, and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, well, we're going to get weird. Shout out Shane. It is what we do. We do get weird. It is part of the discussion here. And there's a lot of weird things happening out there. And I don't know. As we always like to say as part of the show, may you live in interesting times. And let me tell you, you bet your bippy, we're living in interesting times. Speaking of which, did you guys know that there's another Sphinx? Yeah, right? Or no, not at all? Or, yeah, we're going to talk about that. Hold on. Stop the press. Let's go straight to this. Now, all these links are in the description down below if you want to dig into them a little further and kind of find out what the hell's actually going on here. Super sweet. I'd appreciate if you do that. I'm not right about anything. This is just a fun conversation about wild ideas. So if you're here for the truth, you're in the wrong place. This is not about truth. This is about possibilities. Okay? That's it. No claims being made on my part, just putting some pieces together and talking to amazing friends over the interwebs by dark of night, as I like to say. All right. From ancientorigins.net, and this is brand new. This just happened this past week, okay? And Filippo Bondi and his team, which we've talked about in the past when they found those superstructures beneath the pyramid with their new technology, and, you know, that was all this big to do. It was this huge thing that kind of came out. Jay of Project Unity was all over it. Shout out Jay. He's actually met with that team and kind of done some preliminary work there. So maybe this pans out. because who really knows what that looks like? I think it's an exciting way to look at the world. And if the technology does pan out and we can see things deep under the ground, well, maybe we'll find some wild things as we continue scanning. But here we go. This is a headline from just a few days back. And this is from, actually, hold on. This is, wait, is it that long ago? Okay, maybe a month ago. Anyway, I just saw it on X and it had like 1 million views or something. It was ridiculous. But anyway, headline is this. Controversy rages over second Sphinx claim at Giza. Yeah. Let me just read you the blurb, the AI summary. Now, look, to me, you know me, like if you look at the sands of the desert, if you can go back to the ancient times, all right, like there's going to be a ton of stuff buried in the sand. That's just a fact. There's literally no two ways about it. It's just been buried over the centuries and that's the way it is. Okay. That's it. All right. So if you tell me, well, we found, something wild beneath the sands of Egypt, close to Giza, I'd be like, yeah, no kidding. You don't say. But in this case, let me read it. So here we go. So Italian researchers from the Aker research project led by radar engineer Filippo Bondi used synthetic aperture radar, which we've talked about, Doppler tomography, to detect what they believe is a massive underground structure mirroring the Great Sphinx. The team reports finding organized geometric formations, deep chambers, and a 108-foot tall hardened sand dune that could conceal a second monument. Biondi claims the radar data shows a structural network similar to passages beneath the known Sphinx, with precise geometric correlation to the visible pyramids suggesting deliberate ancient design. Where have we heard that before? We've heard that ancient astronaut theorists say yes. And look, I only say that because I think it's funny because it is sort of that, this ambiguous group of people says yes. Who says yes? Well, these people that we won't really name, but ancient astronaut theorists say yes. Anyway, not to crap on the idea, but you get why it's kind of funny to me. Troubled minds say yes or whatever. Anyway, so supporting evidence, researchers point to the Dream Stele. We'll get to that in a second. A granite slab erected by Pharaoh Tutmos IV between the paws of the Great Sphinx. Why? Yeah, it gets complicated. So that's where we start. So they basically say that, look, they found this thing. There's a structure under there that mirrors the orientation of the Sphinx, east-west, and almost as if it's kind of set up in a portal, right? Like an east-west portal. Think, and as I was going through the information, reading about this stuff and learning and doing all the things that I do as part of these shows, it came to mind the idea of the never-ending story. Remember that with Atreyu and what was the kid reading the book? I can't remember his name. I'm terrible at this because that's a movie I haven't seen in 40 years. But basically let me read this because this is absolutely fascinating. This scene kind of mirrors this idea. Let's see, here we go. One moment. Yeah, this is it. So the two magic gates of the sphinxes, right? But they weren't really sphinxes in the movie. They were more like Lamassu, which we'll get to that as well. But anyway, so in the novel, Atreyu has to pass through a gate guarded by two enormous sphinx-like statues to reach the southern oracle. The sphinxes have their eyes closed, but when they open them, anyone caught in their gaze is destroyed on the spot, as seen by the knight wanders through, gets nuked, and it's very sad. And now poor little Atreyu, a not yet a grown man, now has to walk through there, and it's a terrifying moment, right? His name is Sebastian. Thank you for Shane, the blind second out there. So the key detail here is that the sphinxes don't actively hunt you; they simply see. They see you, and it's game over. You're nuked. They shoot those weird triangular lasers. I know that because I went back and I watched the scene real fast to refresh my memory. But in this case, the terror isn't really aggression. It is this threshold of not the Sphinx or the Lamassu or whatever you want to call these things hunting you. It's the fact that you cannot pass, like the Gandalf, you shall not pass with the Balrog, right? And of course, if you do, and you do it with an unpure heart, all of these things, bad things befall you, right? I mean, this is a tale that goes back to the days of yore. Now, not just the never-ending story, but the idea of maybe this second Sphinx. Now, if you've never heard of this and the idea of a second Sphinx, I hadn't either for a long time. Okay. I just hadn't. It was one of those things that was like, kind of like the time before the moon, right? Like people talk about it. We've considered it, we've kind of kicked the can around on that cosmic soccer ball, but what does it mean? You can't really like measure that. Like you can't, it's more like an ancestral memory of mythology and folklore, right? It's cool. It's fun. It's interesting. But is it measurable? I'm not so sure. But in this particular case, you start to look at the fact that there might be a second Sphinx only because of the absence of all the rest of the things they have not found yet. Okay. And if you remember, way back when they did not discover the Sphinx, but when they actually uncovered it, it was covered up to its neck, even further, almost completely buried in the sands of Egypt, that they had to actually dig down and expose this thing and then do some restoration work and, all the things that they've done to it to get it to its moment in the sun where we can actually see it again. But for centuries, it was buried almost completely. And so who knows what the hell else is out there in the desert, right? Okay, so hold the thought, because the weird part is, well, there's a bunch of weird parts, but the weird part that kind of fits into this and makes me wonder if there is a second Sphinx, it actually goes back thousands of years. Yeah, right? It's not just a modern thing where Filippo Bondi and these guys are like, oh, we found a thing, looks like the Sphinx, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. It's not that. It's an ancient story. It goes back to Tutmos IV. And there's a very specific inscription, which I'll show you in just a moment when we come back, that suggests full well there is a second Sphinx. In any case, be right back. More Troubled Minds in just one moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll bury the lead and tell you all about the second Sphinx in just a minute when we come back. Don't go anywhere. 1 minute, the Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. We'll see you in just a second. We'll talk to James. We got Michael W. with his hand up as well. If that's a mistake, let me know. If not, we'll go to you and when we get back, and James as well. Here we go. Be right back. More Troubled Minds in exactly 1 minute. Do not go anywhere. Feeling stressed? Overwhelmed? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept away by our emotions. Take a breath and find your inner strength with the Stoic Minute.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
The ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we can't control everything in life, but we can control how we react.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Focus on what you can influence. Cultivate a positive mindset and let go of what you can't change. Find your inner strength. Live each day with courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Embrace the Stoic virtues and find peace within. The Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? Okay, now this is the part where the plot thickens, okay? I was reading up on this. As you know, I like to kind of skip around history a little bit and go, okay, well, what evidence is there to actually suggest there was ever a second Sphinx? All right? And this thing is called the Dream Stele, or Stele, S-T-E-L-E, and it is placed between the paws of the Sphinx itself, okay? See that thing on the screen right there? That's what I'm talking about. These links are on the description. Do check it out. Now, you can't really see the inscription because it's basically, been sitting there for literally thousands of years. And, things happen. He's sitting in the sun, the wind erosion, the sand, all this stuff. It's bad news for these inscriptions, right? Well, check it out. I took it from Wikipedia. I dropped it into Gemini. And this is what fantastic stuff AI is good for, doing stuff like this. And it basically did this. It drew it out, kind of darkened it as if it was written in like an ink pen. Okay, this is the Dream Stele itself, which was placed between the paws of the actual Sphinx that we know of. And if you look on the very top of this, let's see, can I actually move this? Let's blow this up a little bit. There it is. There it is. On the very top of the Dream Stele, placed between the two paws of the Sphinx we know, are the depictions of two Sphinx. All right, you see them? Right there on top. You absolutely cannot miss them. Now, it gets more weird, but the weirder part is there's a story. There's an inscription in this about Tutmos IV and a dream he had as he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx itself. Now, I'll tell you about that in a second, but it does absolutely fill in the gaps when it comes to this story. Because like I said, if you don't believe there's a second Sphinx, that's cool. I'm not sure I do either. However, when you start to dig a little bit and find out that there are some historical references here or there, it does make me wonder what in the world is buried in those ancient sands. In any case, I'll get back to that. Remind me about the dream of Thutmose IV that he had when he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx. 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Just like this, hang tight. Michael W. James, you are first. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? Go right ahead.
I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Welcome to the thing.
Good. Yeah, thank you. This is fascinating to me because whether that second Sphinx does or does not exist anymore, or if it ever did or not, what does that remind you of in a way? Remind me of in a way? It makes me think of this idea of a physical world represented by, let's say, a physical Sphinx that we do know of now, that we see now, and this other that is debated, that we don't know if it exists, that people think may have existed. In other words, this possible ghost of a Sphinx or spirit of a Sphinx. That's also really, I'm really wondering about that. That's an amazing sort of I don't know, coincidence, synchronicity, whatever you want to call that. I also would love to know if they ever do sort of excavate that, and I'd be curious if they find another one of these steles or these inscriptions that has another story on it.
Yeah, right. Like very much a Atreyu and Sebastian and the never-ending story and the Lamassu Sphinx-like things. And then what if there's another inscription on another stela in the paws of the other Sphinx that maybe goes back thousands of years prior to Thutmose IV? I mean, like, I follow you. I follow where your mind's at here. And this is why this is a wild idea, because we talk about these thresholds, the Lion's Gate. Clearly, that's one of the obvious ones here, astronomically speaking. Shout out Jen. Also, not just that, the never-ending story aspect of this, which clearly the guy that wrote that book was very in tune with sort of the esoteric tradition in Europe and beyond when he wrote those books. But then also, if you look at this, like I said, and go back thousands of years, there are references to it, including, of course, this depiction of this right there in stone between the paws of the Sphinx itself. Not one, but two. It's really weird. It's really weird. What else you got, James? Go ahead.
And that space in between the two. I mean, I really am curious about if they do find a second one, what kind of energy exists in that area that maybe is not talked about a lot. What kind of maybe anomalous phenomenon happened there in that space in between those two massive structures? Who knows how far apart they would be? But I'm just curious, because if you think of them as sort of facing those two horizons, east and west, well, you have that space in between them that goes north and south. But it's almost like a planet-sized version of like a door or a doorway or a space in between that sort of portal space, possibly. However you want to look at it, whichever way you want to face it, it still is this sort of anomalous space. And I mean, with everything that we've talked about before on your show and mine about thresholds and stairways and hallways having anomalous experiences, whether they're caused by anything conscious there or not, just creepy feelings people get in hallways or stairways, those kinds of spaces. And now you have this sort of at a massive scale with these, possibly these two figures. So I find that fascinating, and I think that's all I have for now. I'm happy to sit in and talk again when there's time, and if I have anything else that comes to mind.
You were the best. Absolutely. You stay right there. We'll get back to you. You know him, you love him. Salcido Paranormal, not just a dear friend, the paranormal expert of Troubled Minds, SALSIDO paranormal.com. Go check it out. Go buy his books. Like I said, they're on Amazon. Automagically buy them tonight. Get them tomorrow. Let's support our friends. Let's help James. Let's help the whole crew here. And James is first. James gets the first shout out, the first plug. Hang tight. We'll get back to James momentarily. We're talking the second Sphinx tonight. Now, if you've never heard of this, super cool. If you have heard of this, also super cool, because there's a ton of lore that goes back, like I said, to Thutmose IV. I'll read you the story. Okay. I'm not going to tease this all night. It's going to be one of those ones when we get back after the break. I'll tell you the story where the dream he had, he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx, and it's written on the Dream Stele between the paws of the Sphinx we know. Love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you know about it? And do you think it's possible there is something mysterious buried in the desert right across the way from the Sphinx itself? 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Michael W., welcome back, brother. You're on Troubled Minds. We got about 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes or so, and you're welcome to stay after the break if you got more. How you been? And welcome back.
Good. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is really interesting. I kind of read through the write-up, and the idea of there being a second Sphinx, and the mythical journey the guy went on in the write-up. I forget the guy's name, but passing through that gateway between the two things.
Gilgamesh.
Yeah. I guess the idea of there being a second Sphinx, and what does that mean? Does that are these just monuments, or is this some kind of magical gateway? I guess what I've been thinking a lot about about consciousness lately, and the way we experience physical reality. We all hang out here in this physical reality, and we all pretty much agree about the way it works. Red means stop, green means go, rocks are heavy, water's wet, all that stuff. But then there are altered states of consciousness that come in many different ways. People have religious experiences. People meditate. People use ceremonial psychedelics and things. And to me, so those are two different parts of reality, maybe. So maybe I'm thinking of reality as a sort of spectrum, and the physical part that us 8 billion humans generally agree upon is a very small sliver of the spectrum of reality. And it's possible maybe to experience more of that spectrum through these altered states. Like I started messing around with the gateway tapes a long time ago, and doing the meditations on those. And I think a lot of folks on here are probably familiar with that. And after I started doing that, I started experiencing sleep paralysis. And the weird thing was that didn't happen while I was using the tapes. It was just a phenomena that I started experiencing after doing the meditations on the tapes. I would do the meditations and nothing would really happen. I would feel kind of good, and it was a very relaxing state. But then I started having sleep paralysis. And then I noticed that sometimes if I had sleep paralysis and I concentrated on not being too afraid, that I would sometimes be able to float up out of my body. Weird experience. I don't know how to describe it exactly. But it was something that I was interested in and I wanted to learn more about. That's, I guess, an example of an altered state. And so after reading the write-up, I was thinking about the idea of the two sphinxes. Oh, could there be two of them? Could that mean it's some kind of mythical gateway? There's these other monuments in let me see, in Peru, they have the Gate of the Gods, the Gateway of the Gods. I think it's called Aramu Muru. It's this carving in a cliff face that's sort of shaped like a doorway. But it's a doorway to nowhere. It's solid rock, It's not something you can walk through. So people look at it, oh, it's a cool monument somebody carved sometime. I had this idea that there's another one in Bolivia that's kind of similar, that you can actually walk underneath, but it doesn't actually go anywhere. You just walk from one side to the other. I had this idea that yes, in our physical reality, these are just stone monuments. They're really cool. Somebody worked really hard to make them. But is it possible that in an altered state of consciousness, it does become some kind of a gateway that goes somewhere? That when you're no longer in your body, when you're traveling just with your consciousness in whatever medium of reality that is, at that point, do these monuments become something that leads to somewhere else? Is it a gateway somewhere else? Are these guardians of some other realm?
Yeah, well said. All
that's
that
only accessible.
Okay. We're just about out of time. We're going to get to the scientific part of that too, because I think even though there's that esoteric wisdom part of this, I think there's also what science would suggest is also very real, that threshold effect. We'll talk about that. You're welcome to stay. If you got more, just mute up and we'll get back to you in just a minute, okay?
I'm good. That's about all I had. You guys have a good evening.
Appreciate the call. You were the best. Michael W., you know him, you love him, and welcome back. It's been a minute since he's been part of the conversation. Tonight we're talking the second Sphinx. What do you know about this? Is it possible, buried somewhere in the sands of Egypt, there's a second Sphinx on an east-west latitude that does sort of hearken to the idea of Lion's Gate? 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Do not go anywhere.
You're tuning into Troubled Minds, the show where mystery knows no bounds. Stay tuned for revelations that'll keep you questioning the fabric of reality.
Facing the dawn, one facing the grave. The sun comes through between them each morning. They open the gates, they open the gate. Yesterday and tomorrow, holding the line between the living and the dead. Yesterday and tomorrow, half of the threshold is all that remains. A pharaoh dreamed beneath the forgotten stone. He carved his mandate into the paw. Two faces watching the horizon together, but one of them has gone. One of them is gone. Yesterday and tomorrow, holding the line between the living and the dead. Yesterday and tomorrow, half of the threshold is all that remains.
Yeah, some songs hit, some songs miss. Sorry about that. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. What's up? Sudi's here. We got Jorge, the Robert, Sacha, Joey, Don't Panic, Lunging Meal, Joe in Florida, Michael W. Thanks for the call. Fire stuff. With the Daryl in New York, we'll come to you in a moment. Apoc, what's up? Chef Pete, Dragon Rose, Linda. That's Matt, Sal, and Herschel, and James. You guys are the best. What's up? Hiker, Theo, Puff. We get the Puff sighting. Good evening, guys. Gordo. I hope everybody's well tonight. Just hanging out doing stuff. Sacha, Fred. We got White Like the Ghost. Thank you for the call. Miss Honeybee, I see you there. Just keep on chatting, and I'll keep on saying hi as we go. Troubled Minds coming up in about 10 seconds. And love to hear what you think about this. What do you know about the second Sphinx? And do you think it's real or nah? I'll make the case. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening right about now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we go deep. Thousands of years ago, Thutmose IV suggested, by inscribing in stone something called the Dream Stele. The Dream Stele, S-T-E-L-E. It's spelled different ways. But if you look at it, and this was found between the paws of the Sphinx we know, there's the depiction of two. Not one, but two Sphinx, plural. Now, is that Sphinxes? Don't make me make the joke. But what I mean, right? Like they could count, you know. I mean, like, but here's the thing, right? If you were to believe what Filippo Bondi and his team have suggested recently, that there is actually a second Sphinx they have found through this imaging. I don't know. Some weird stuff. Now, what Michael W. was saying is very smart. He was talking about what in science is known as that threshold effect. And it's real. It's been studied. It's very, very, very something we experience every day. It is, you ever walk to the kitchen to go get your glass of water that you left in there and forgot why you're in the kitchen when you walked in there, and then you walk back out because you walk through that threshold. It's like we have this mind reset that happens. It's very minor. It's not like you lose all your memories, of course. You just lose your purpose in the moment of why you were there. Now, like I said, look it up. Don't take my word for it. It is, we've talked about this extensively in the past, but it's called the threshold effect, okay? And it is a psychological aspect. Now, what Michael was saying, and I agree, is that if there was this larger threshold effect, scientifically, then maybe, just maybe, there was something happening more here in the consciousness space. And I've long maintained that this may be one of the things that's happening with Giza, because of the precision of the structures and the density of the stones and the threshold effects that happen not just there but in Luxor and other places in ancient Egypt. It feels as if when you walk through multiple thresholds through some sort of shamanic trance experience, whether there's smoke or mist or they put you on some hallucinogens. Don't do drugs, kids. I don't expect you to either. You know what I mean. Sometimes it could be drumming. Sometimes it could be chanting. Sometimes it could be just the mist of the fire, the smoke, whatever. Like that type of stuff is enough to maybe take you into an altered state. It doesn't have to be, modern hallucinogens or anything to that effect, that actual shamanic journey. But it seems as if maybe there's something happening here. But so don't sleep on the actual science of consciousness and the science of the mind space and how we still experience this even in our kitchen and going out the front door, forgetting our keys, okay? Or whatever. Like these are the types of things that happen on a daily basis. And how do you quantify that in a larger historical context? I think it's complicated, but very well said. Thank you, Michael W. Welcome back. And we're talking about this second Sphinx. Real, nah, somewhere in between. And have you ever heard of this? That's the wild part, because I kind of hadn't until, right? I saw this recently and was like, damn, there's a lot of lore here that suggests maybe, just maybe, there is a second Sphinx. James, welcome back. Anything to add to what Michael W. said or anything else? And if not, we'll go to Daryl in New York.
Great call from Michael W. And, it's, to me, this is amazing, because if you think about some of these things, these objects around the world are almost opposites of each other. You have these doorways where there's a figure on either side of them, or passageways, but then you have those places where there's the shape of a doorway carved into stone somewhere in multiple places. And then if you think about what stone and rocks have in them, they have minerals, they have components that are said to be able to store or discharge or manipulate energy. And I can imagine if you're sort of having an out-of-body experience, or for anyone who is not in a physical state of existence anymore, some kind of spiritual form, soul, consciousness, whatever, maybe these are gateways of some kind. And they don't go anywhere physically, but if you're not in that state and there's other levels to reality in any way, then maybe those are gateways to other places. Within those stones, but also not within those stones, within those cliffs or whatever, and within the underground chambers or whatever. We always talk about that too, how there may be an underworld, but it's not a physical underworld here, but it still exists somewhere. But yeah, all that to me is fascinating.
Yeah, well said. And that's the thing too. As usual, look, it doesn't necessarily have to be going to heaven. Okay, no offense. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying it doesn't have to be. When you talk about these ideas, an altered state could mean just sort of that you click into a different space. You're still here. Your all your consciousness is still local, but you're starting to see things differently. And because of all manner of things that are happening around you, the experience, maybe the chanting, the singing, like I said, the smoke or the steam or whatever it is they've created in the environment, and even these thresholds that you're walking through that kind of maybe even reset that space of hesitation or whatever that might be. It's a weird space, right? But anyway, so I told you I was going to tell you about the actual Dream Stele, and I'll do that before we go to Daryl here, just because I don't want to tease that the entire show. It's important. It's an important aspect to this. Now, the Dream Stele was once again just a big block of stone. All right, it was written in hold on, let me get the thing. I'll just read it to you. That's probably the best way to do it instead of trying to riff this. Unless I can't find it, then I'll just okay. Thutmose IV had a dream. He fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx. And in his dream, the Sphinx spoke to him. And it told him that it would make him ruler, it would make him pharaoh, if he was able to uncover the Sphinx itself, to remove all the sand that had covered the Sphinx for all the years that had been there. Okay? Now, the bizarre part is that why it fits into this is, once again, this Dream Stele was found between the paws of the Sphinx we know. The paws. One paw, the other paw. Not like a pause, Mike. Settle down, slow down. The paws of the Sphinx. It was placed in there, deep, way back, and they've brought it forward now. But it tells the story of this exact situation. Now, and modern Egyptologists say that, well, it was his way of cementing his foundation as pharaoh, as the ruler, because he had to somehow write it in stone just like all the rest of them do. But he thought the best way to do it was to put it in that space. And that's one theory. Okay, but the other thing that came to mind for me was like, okay, this is like a very prophetic dream aspect. This is one of those things where, you know, you go to sleep, you have the dream, this inanimate object, big scary thing anyway, talks to you and tells you the prophecy, tells you what is to come. And it feels almost as if, and I'm going to be scandalous here, that the Sphinx he was supposed to find was the second Sphinx. And maybe, just maybe, and with Thutmose IV, there's a big scandalous thing with him and his brothers and other would-be successioners, that there was murder and there was all kinds of shenanigans that came as part of it. And that Dream Stele was put in place as a way to sort of cement that idea. But that story is written in stone back to, I believe it's, I'll find it in a second. I'll get you the date on that. Links are in the description. Do check it out. But it's wild, right? So the more I was digging into the idea of a second Sphinx, the more it started to sort of cement in the lore. And that's the thing that kind of dawned on me. I was like, all right, so to suggest it's just hidden in the sand somewhere, you know, you can say there's a lot of stuff hidden in not just the sands of Egypt, probably the world over, sandstorms, all the stuff. It just buries history, right? However, in this particular case, between the paws of the Sphinx itself, he wrote a story about uncovering the Sphinx from the sand. But which Sphinx were we talking about? 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. The Dream Stele, Stele, is what it's called. If you want to look it up, I'll pull it up and drop it in the chat in a second. Thank you, Sasha, for doing that. Let's go to Daryl in New York. Thanks for being patient, my friend. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight? And just pop on in here. And please, headphones and all the rest of those things. And welcome. Go right ahead. Hello, hello. You were there, then you muted.
Oh, I muted. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. You sound fantastic. Welcome to the thing.
Oh, good. Good. This is, I don't know if I'm having a Mandela effect, but I know I've heard this before and I've seen it before. And I'm telling you something. There's many sphinxes that have been discovered, including one in the Louvre in Paris. That's was a private art collector got it in the 18th century. I don't know if it was during like Napoleon that they got a lot of acquired a lot of art and Egyptian things. They got a lot of what are those called? Those not a monolith. The things that look like a statue. What are those called? Not a statue. They're like they're long, like a chopstick that's made out of granite.
Obelisk.
Obelisk. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. So they acquired a lot of stuff. So there's a granite sphinx in the Louvre Museum, but they found, I think it was in 2018. I have an article here that they found the sphinx in 2008. Oh no, they've been spending $3 million or $30 million to renovate and excavate since 2008. But in 2018, there was an article about a second sphinx. And it wasn't in great shape. I remember seeing it. It definitely looked like the other sphinx, but it was a little more worn down, But I was thinking, like, there might be sphinxes all over the world, not just in Egypt. If there's pyramids everywhere that keep on coming up, there possibly could be sphinxes to match the pyramids. Just saying, But this is not the only sphinx. There have definitely been other sphinx. I think I've posted like a whole aisle of sphinxes that I think it might be. I'm just saying, like, maybe it's a ploy to get more tourism. One other thing, though, the AI supposedly fact-checked this and said this isn't even true. It's not been confirmed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I don't.
Newsweek. Yeah. I've got a fact check from Newsweek as well that says, "Nah, come on, this is stupid, guys." Which is part of the article too. If you read the write up, now, not just the interesting part of a second sphinx. They say they found it. The claims, we get the claims all the time. That the aliens from Alpha Centauri are here because we found them or whatever. Like, people say stuff all the time. So when I see a headline, I'm like, whatevs, But in this particular case, it was instantly fact checked and instantly just kind of tossed out. Even though, he's kind of got like the scan of it and you kind of point to it and say, look, there's something here that kind of fits like it would be in that east-west horizon. And, you'd have to dig it up to say, no, that's not it. So, but instantly, like you're describing, every entity out there, what's his name? The guy the Egyptologist guy, it'll come to me in a second. The guy, everybody knows what he looks like. He poo-pooed it. The Newsweek fact checked it. AI everybody fact checked it. And they were like, no, stop it. This is not real. And you're absolutely right. It's the velocity of just kind of poo-pooing on this was next level. And I'm glad you picked up on that, because that was part of that write-up and part of the idea of this. If it's not threatening whatsoever, why would they do that? Why would they instantly just say no instead of, well, let's see what the evidence brings us, right?
I know. I find like AI is kind of like hiding the truth or something. It's not even just lying, but it's putting our history into a lie, I really wouldn't trust anything anymore that, it's going to erase our history. Maybe that's what's happening. It's going to, as soon as one generation is gone, who's going to be there to question it, I think they just want to rewrite the whole history and make sure that nobody's around to challenge it. Like, that they don't want there to be anything under the pyramids, even though we have technology that showed there was things under the pyramids, like the LiDAR technology. They're saying, well, LiDAR isn't reliable. Why not? Says who? It's a new technology. Why are you doubting it? Why is the narrative of archaeology so antiquated? In every aspect of it, they're not accepting any new theories, and there's so much evidence that this has to be absolutely relooked at, like Eric von Däniken and, Chariot of the Gods and Ancient Aliens, You have to question the narrative at this point. There's too much things that are being, exposed that prove that all of their theories are definitely slightly incorrect, that we were in the Stone Age 10,000 years ago, that we were, just like cavemen. I don't know if we've ever been cavemen.
Yeah.
I'm starting to doubt that ever happened.
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
And you're spot on. So all the chat is helped me out. Appreciate that. Zahi Hawass is the guy's name. antiquities minister of Egypt for a long time. He's now just doing regular his own archaeological stuff, but he's very prominent in the field. And by the way, if you want to listen to the worst podcast ever, and nothing against the guy, he's a human, and I'm not saying go harass him or nothing like that, but go listen to him on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he was horrific. He was really hard to listen to because his ego, his unwillingness to yield, the fact that he was like, well, I discovered that, not anybody else. He's like, it's in my book. It's in my book. I was just like, I was kind of disgusted with the guy. He wouldn't even consider anything outside of his paradigm. And look, I get that he's an expert. I get it. And I respect that. However, look, an expert doesn't mean you know everything there is to know about everything. It means you know everything or most of the things there are about what we've discovered thus far. It doesn't mean you know everything about everything, but his ego was like next level off the charts. It's just such a turnoff. And like I said, go listen back and you tell me, send me a message and be like, you're right, Mike. That was a hard listen. It was hard. I've listened to the whole damn thing. But anyway, I digress.
Absolutely.
And there's go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I've even heard of people who've been traveling to Egypt that are doing like sightseeing, and also, that are experienced researchers, and they start talking with the tour guides, and they've been like thrown out of sites for questioning the narrative. They are so against hearing any other theories other than their own that, you can't even discuss like even stuff that you're discovering yourself on your own. Like, wow, this looks like the one in Peru, or this, comparing them to other destinations. Like they don't want you to speculate. They really are, so against speculation that they're, the narrative is not to be questioned whatsoever. I've heard this, on other shows of people who've gone as tourists, and what kind of discussions they've had with the tour guides, and they get very hostile, including it not just in Egypt, but in Peru as well, in South America. So, I think they're very well trained, these people, but I think they're very stuck in their ways. But there's so many articles that I don't know why AI doesn't fact check the internet for other articles about this, because I'm finding them, about different sphinxes that were discovered, and I'm trying to look at the images of them. But there's been other sphinxes that were discovered, like in 2018, in different parts of Egypt. They're different sizes, though. That's the one thing I didn't compare. Exactly. Was the size, the dimensions. Now, the one in France, I think if it's in the Louvre, it's probably not that big, It couldn't be as big as the Sphinx in Egypt. So, I don't know. I'm not good with measurements, but I know the dimensions are like, the length is 480 centimeters, which is 190 inches. The height is 183 centimeters or 72 inches. That doesn't sound very tall or big, right? But they say it's probably was created as early as 26th century BC. That was discovered in Tanis. But this is old. This has been in the Louvre Museum in France since the 1800s. Bought by a private collector. It's beautiful. It's in pink granite, though. This is probably a very fine, copy or something, but it's still old as hell. It's definitely an old Sphinx, and the ones that they found in other parts of Egypt are very old as well. They sound like they're a little bit bigger. Plus, they show. I think it would look great, like bookends. They would look, a Sphinx on each side of the pyramid is probably very aesthetic. Why wouldn't you have matching sphinxes? I don't see any issue with finding a second one. Why would they want to hide it? That's what concerns me more, is why are they not telling the truth about this stuff? It's you can research it.
Yeah, that was some of the early speculation. So that there was one east-west, like I said, and the one on the east side was the one that we know, the one that's been uncovered, the one with the Dream Stele. And again, links are in the description if you want to read up on this and follow up and kind of see where my mind was when we talked about this. But they say, theoretically, that there's another one on the other side of the Nile, okay, that is sort of that east-west horizon and was set up as that gateway aspect of the Lion's Gate. And who knows, as James said, maybe I mean, maybe there is a north and south version that we have no idea because it's been buried in the sand forever. Because don't forget, go back to those pictures in like the late 1700s, early 1800s.
Right.
Even then, this thing was
exactly
once again buried in the sand all the way up to its neck. And like if let's say there was a war, like if there was a war or something, and then it just kind of disappeared from memory, and that's it. It's gone. Like you don't find it again until you find it again. And so maybe, I mean, maybe this is the type of stuff that these are the incredible finds that we will uncover. But as you very smartly described, if I was an archaeologist, I would be stoked for all the new technology, and I would be right. Like, I mean, we've seen the scans of the Amazon jungle where they're like, well, the Mayans and the Aztecs and stuff, they weren't really that widespread. And then you see like the new scans that like find all kinds of structures all over the place. We're like, holy crap, they were everywhere down there. It's just so remote and ridiculous to get to at this point, and so overgrown in the jungle, which is a perfect example of the sand covering the whatever was there for so long. Yeah, go ahead. What else you got? Great stuff.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking like the gold in the Amazon, and how many treasures are buried. Like apparently there was a lot of gold even left over from the Aztecs that they came to North America to hide it. And then nobody's found it yet, and people have died trying to find it. So there's a lot of treasures, I think, that are buried, especially the history that we don't know half of it. Can you imagine? What if we find something that would outdo even Egypt that's buried? That would blow Egypt away. That would just dwarf. The Giza pyramid would be dwarfed by the grandeur of these cities that are just buried over just time. And how old are these things? Really old. I think we've really underestimated the age of them. Like, what were people like? What was the civilization like if it's much older than what we think, I'm sure of this. If this was buried under the sand and there's something underneath it, how damn old is that? That's unbelievable. When did the sandstorm happen? Why did it happen? How did we turn, lush places into desert? What happened? Something happened. Something we definitely... And we're probably going to repeat it,
Yeah. Unfortunately, back to worshiping the sun god, right? What's the loop, right? So AI, we perfect AI. AI takes us over. The sun zaps AI back to the Stone Age, and then we end up worshiping the sun over again. I mean, it's like this cyclical aspect of things. It seems like we can't seem to get away from ourselves creating these patterns and these loops. Fire stuff. Regarding the idea of that gateway aspect or the threshold effect, do you think maybe there is something going on with this type of thing and sort of a missing secondary where it's sort of a broken technology, right? It's sort of like half a doorway. You think maybe somehow on that Giza plateau there is something happening in the consciousness aspect, or do you think that's maybe a step too far?
I think it would be so unbelievable that if everything was connected, every obelisk was connected, every dome of those pyramids had the gold back on them, and somebody did not necessarily a switch, but they would wait for, maybe it was like those eclipses would connect everything on the solstice that would create some kind of amazing energy that would, something miraculous would happen probably because of the I don't know, there's something about the way they built everything. They're on parallels, they're on, whatever they call them. I'm having trouble with my memory.
Like the grids, northwest, east,
something like
all
that.
The stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the way they even went into outer space, or how they landed in our, maybe the Nazca lines were connected, like how they land on Earth. So I was listening to some other podcast that said these places, these sacred places have so much in common because they're all on some parallel or some grid line, and the access to Earth would be perfect for them to enter from outer space on some kind of level. Maybe that's how they, navigated. They used those pyramids and those obelisks to navigate, or the Nazca lines for visible cues, visible directions. For example, that was their GPS. And something amazing might have happened, who knows? Or maybe that's how they would travel, or time travel even, something really amazing. It's possible. Yeah.
The chat's got our back. Ley lines is what we were looking for. That's the term. Yeah.
Ley lines. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ley lines.
Just about out of time. If you got a joke for us, if not, that's okay. You're allowed.
I do. Here's one. What do you get when you cross an Egyptian mummy with a mechanic?
Not sure.
A toot and Carmen. A Carmen. Toot and Carmen. Sorry.
No, it played anyway. Fire's done.
Okay. And what game shows do Egyptian mummies like the most?
Not sure.
The $20,000 pyramid.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Thanks for the rim shot.
You're the best.
Okay. Thanks. That's it.
Have a great night. You know you love her. That's Daryl in New York, a good friend for a long time. Please go follow her in all the places, troubledminds.org/friends. It says follow Daryl here. Please do that. It's free to follow her YouTube channel. Go say hi. Go tell her you love her jokes. And I love her jokes. And you love how smart she is. I love how smart she is. Love to hear your thoughts tonight. We're talking the Sphinx, but not just one. We're talking two. Why? Well, because they say they found the second one. How ridiculous does that sound to you, or not? And do you think we'll ever dig it out of the desert? 702-857-6939. This is Troubled Minds on Michael Strange. Be right back. We got more from James coming up, and your calls as well. Nobody on the line if you guys want to jump in here. Love to hear your thoughts. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A heart surgeon is making waves online after labeling soft drinks liquid death and urging people to avoid them entirely, without exception. Dr. Jeremy London, posting to social media, ranked fizzy beverages alongside smoking, alcohol, and refined carbohydrates as things he personally refuses to consume. He later admitted the dramatic phrasing was partly an attention grab, but stood firmly behind the underlying message. Dr. William Lee, appearing on a popular science and nutrition podcast, echoed those concerns, pointing to the chronic buildup of additives, colorings, preservatives, and stabilizers as the true long-term danger, not any single can, but a lifetime of exposure. Shifting to the world of artificial intelligence, OpenAI is facing questions it would clearly prefer not to answer. The Wall Street Journal reported Monday that ChatGPT's growth slowed significantly toward the end of last year, with the company falling short of its internal target of 1 billion weekly active users and missing its own revenue projections. Chief Financial Officer Sarah Fryer has reportedly raised alarms about whether the company can sustain its massive computing contracts, putting her at odds with Chief Executive Sam Altman. Markets responded sharply, with shares of cloud partners Oracle and CoreWeave both taking significant hits, and all of this unfolded on the same day Elon Musk took the stand in a California courtroom seeking Altman's removal from the company. And finally, a story that puts a whole new spin on the term built tough. New research published today confirms that scorpions are, quite literally, part metal. Scientists at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History examined 18 species across the scorpion family tree, finding metals, most notably zinc, concentrated at the very tips of their stingers and throughout their pincers. The metals appear to sharpen and harden these weapons, helping scorpions hunt and defend themselves more effectively. Researchers say this is the first study to statistically map metal distribution across scorpion species while accounting for their shared evolutionary history, suggesting these creatures have been refining their biological armor for roughly 435 million years. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Indeed. Built metal tough. What's up, guys? Hope you're well tonight. Fire calls tonight. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for bearing with me in my delivery, we'll call it. Dragon Rose says this, a mummy calls a restaurant. Hello, I'd like to reserve a table for Pharaoh Sakra Hotep I. Could you spell that out, please? Of course. Bird, 2 triangles, wavy line, the sun, bird again, jackal's head, and of course, a scarab. Yeah. Thanks, Linda. Yes, indeed. Who did I miss? What's up, Lunging Mule? Sudi, I see you there. What's up, the Robert Sacha? Joey APOC. What's up, Kelly? Kelly, you got a take on this? Did you know there were two Sphinxes? Yeah, wild stuff. What's up, Michael W? Fire stuff. Appreciate the call. Joe in Florida. Chef Pete. What's up, Dragon Rose? Love the joke. Thank you. Matt Sal, Herschel, and Daryl. Daryl, fire stuff. Great jokes as always. You were the best, as you know. Puff, we got Hiker, Theo over there on Rumble. Hope everybody's well tonight. Doing Troubled Mind stuff, hanging out, and being halfway goofy. But there's a lot of stuff here that's compelling enough. Yeah, the challenge is to make Mike crack up on air. Yeah, fair enough. It wouldn't be the first time, to be honest. Yeah, Zahi Hawass, that's the guy I'm talking about. If I missed you in any of the chats, just say hi. I'll say hi back. What's up, Miss Honeybee? I see you there. Thanks for all the chat in all the places and being kind to each other. It means a lot. So much, Jake. How you doing? So much, Jake. Troubled Minds ones. How you doing? What's going on, boys and ladies and everybody else? I see you. Yeah. If I missed you, just say hi. I'll say hi back. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening now. Let's check. Kick's usually pretty quiet, but sometimes we get a sighting of our friend over there, but it's not there tonight. All right, here we go. Trouble Minds happening. Let's go. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you know there were two Sphinxes? I'll hold the joke. Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're going deep. Not only are we told that they found, through some sort of new scanning technology, a second Sphinx, but did you know there was a second Sphinx at all? Now, like I said, when I see this stuff, when I see headlines these days, I just go, oh boy, here we go, right? But then I do a little digging and I'm like, okay, was there even ever a second Sphinx? And suddenly the past speaks. And then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe, just maybe there's something to this. And so don't forget, found within the paws of the Sphinx we know, the big one on the Giza plateau, was the Dream Stele. And on the Dream Stele, what's the guy's name? Oh my goodness. There we go. I found it. Tutmos IV. All right. A bloody, multiple successors here. And then they're not sure who murdered whom type of thing. But he supposedly put this Dream Stele, this massive thing weighing 15 tons, between the paws of the Sphinx, which tells a story about him falling asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx itself. And in his dream, the Sphinx spoke to him and said specifically, if you can clear all the sand from me, I will make you Pharaoh. Now it makes me wonder how much of the Sphinx was visible then, and it makes me wonder if it was talking about the Sphinx we know at all. Weird, right? But beyond that, there's a lot here. The Lion's Gate, that threshold effect we always talk about, but then it gets even deeper mythologically. We'll talk about that. Goes all the way back to Gilgamesh. Yeah, wild stuff. Hang tight, guys. We're going to get to you in just a second. James, anything to add? Tons of stuff here that we've touched on since we talked to you last. Thanks for being patient. Anything you got to add? And if so, welcome back. Go right ahead.
Yeah, great calls from everyone. There's something I think I may have missed, and I think it's because it has to do with geography and maps and places and all that, like locations. Is the Nile supposed to be between the two Sphinx?
Yes, correct.
A river of some kind?
Shout out rivers. Yeah, exactly. So the West Sphinx, the East Sphinx is on the Giza plateau. Supposedly the West Sphinx is on the other side of the Nile. Yes.
So that is fascinating because that Nile River is, I'm sure Kelly can tell us more about that, but it's that the Nile is sort of, it's so important to that region of the world for all the reasons, economic, spiritual, all these things. And so here, if that second Sphinx does exist or did exist, then you have essentially a gateway on a type of a gateway or passageway. You have these two types of passages, thresholds, corridors in the same space. basically, which is fascinating because of how that connects to all things in energy and just in that threshold effect and magnifying that, like we were talking about, by who knows how big of a scale, with everything. So that's I missed that earlier, and that's really fascinating that that's the case, because that just adds whole other levels of possibly anomalous and or paranormal and or just energetic possibilities to all this.
Yeah, well said. All that. And interestingly, so I was going back and searching the the esoteric internet, the weirdos who did these websites years and years ago, and I mean that in the nicest way. Like, I grew up on GeoCities and some of that stuff, right? Some of the really, really wild stuff that they won't talk about in academia and all the rest. But there's they've got the Sphinx Stele here, or the Dream Stele that we've been talking about on this question. This is on catchpenny.org, and it says, was there a second Sphinx at Giza? And it cites very clearly, you can see the image there of in that Dream Stele, the two Sphinx back to back, again, conceptualized with your mind's eye, east and west, maybe even facing different directions as part of that gate aspect. But then, like I said, we are now lucky enough to have AI to just go, well, fill this in so we can actually see what this looks like. And this is what this thing looks like. Okay. I just gave it to Gemini and said, hey, turn this from like really hard to see into like what this really looks like. And boom, there you go. Wild stuff. Welcome to 2026. In any case, not to glorify AI too much because it turns everybody off. Not going to do that. Instead, let's talk to you guys. Did you know there was a second Sphinx? Have you heard about this? And do you think they maybe have found it? And then what does it mean for the rest of the Giza Plateau and beyond? 702-857-6939. Hang tight, Kelly. We got a phone caller here that beat you by just a little bit, and you get the rest of the time after them. Let's go to whoever this is. You're on Troubled Minds. What's your first name? Where are you calling from? And go right ahead. Test on the phone line. You're on Troubled Minds.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. What's your first name? Where are you calling from? And go right ahead.
What up? This is Jay from Arizona.
Jay in Arizona. What's up, my man?
Trying to catch up some of the last episodes you guys had. I think overall, I guess I'll just give a couple quick examples, but it all kind of goes back to whatever you define it as. I just call it spirituality. I don't know. It's just interesting, like some of the prior shows you had, near-death experiences. I have a personal one. I've had a lot of near-death experiences, I guess, throughout my life. But other than that, though, just I guess understanding more about it, like the way you project or broadcast the information gets to us, I guess, in a deeper level. But I don't know. I think you said it was a second Sphinx. Is that correct? Or
yeah, that's what we're talking about tonight. So supposedly they found one. It hasn't been dug up yet, but they say a new technology has detected it as where we might expect it to be, and on an east-west plane of where the first one is actually located across the Nile River. So that's the information we have right now. Like I said, nobody's dug it up yet. There's no proof. There's headlines and there's, the debunkers and all the things you would expect coming out of it when you have a claim like this. But I'm open-minded. I wonder what's buried beneath the Giza Plateau. 100%. Are you there? Did we lose you? Something happened. Jay in Arizona. Are you there? Test 1, 2. Jay's actually not new. He's been around a long time. What's up? What's up? The official skydiver at Troubled Minds. I don't know what happened. I think we got to disconnect. Okay. Call us back. We'll put you on. 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Yeah, we are talking about a second Sphinx. And like I said, this is new to me. This is one of those ones that's, I don't know. I feel like I should have known about this quite a bit a ways ago, years ago, because I haven't been talking to Kelly enough. That's why. Shout out, Kelly. 702-857-6939. Kelly in Colorado. You're on Troubled Minds. How you doing? The first guy to call this show and then call back. Been a good friend forever and always teaching me about all this ancient stuff. Are you there? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? All yours.
Good evening, fellas. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for bringing the energy down. You always have that way, that cadence, that perfect style, the Kelly style. It just settles me down, man. Appreciate it. How are you doing? And welcome. And what do you know about this? Enlighten us, please.
So yeah, I've heard a lot of different, perspectives, different thoughts on this stuff. And, you know, a lot of people are correct on what what the show is kind of based about tonight with, you know, usually when they have like temple guardians or, you know, things that are in front of like different temples or whatnot, usually you find a pair of things, right? So like, what's the one that they said that it was, you know, when you, in the morning time, you could hear it singing. I think it was Megnon or something like that, the gates of Megnon.
Yes.
And on there they have, you know, they'll have a pair right there, right? And you know, you'll find that elsewhere in like in different cultures as well too. Like there's like a figurine, it'd be a man holding different type of animals. It could be like birds, lions, sheep. I mean, and that type of style of figurine that people draw is exactly the same. You know, it's two of a pair. So I understand all that, and you know that, and most people would think that too. But from all the stuff that I've you know studied on some of this stuff was, I mean, even that the whole land of Egypt, aka you know the real name was Kem or Kemet, right? That was the name originally given when they first landed down there, right? This is when after like this goes back to like the Emerald Tablets, and the Emerald Tablets. I'll give you some parts of where they kind of talk about it. So in the Emerald Tablets, he talks about when what is it, that land that they were on, right? They were from help me out here, man.
Atlantis, right? Atlantis.
Yeah, Atlantis. Okay, so they were from Atlantis, and then when he left, they rose above the morning, you know, into a spaceship, and then when they came down, they came into the land of Kem. Right, and that's when they landed down there, and they, you know, rose that whole area into like the golden age back then, right? So that's the story there, and then he mentions in like I have it open tablet it would be tablet 5, right? And he talks about where he buries his spaceship underneath the mountain rocks, right? All like the bedrock, miles down. And then he said he left a marker. It was like a man, but unto a lion, right? And that's what most people think it was the Sphinx. That's marker down there, because he talks about where he says in the future there's going to be an enemy that comes from the deep of space, and then somebody's supposed to call upon his spaceship and defeat the enemy with ease with his spaceship. So, I mean, there's one, you know what I mean, and he talks about it's just a marker. So the markers back is only one. So when the original first built, right, the Sphinx itself. I've only known that there's only been one, the original one, and when that's the one they first started, and it even goes back to the Sumerian stories, you know, about the whole Anunnakis when they came down, and Thoth, which is he's originally known as Ningazita. He's Ningazita. He's Enki's eldest son, right? He's a scientist, and some say magician. But he was the one to actually create the pyramids. He built those. Well, it was his, you know, he's the one that had planned it, but it was all of them that built it, and everything that's underneath it. Like the show that you did, you know, a while back, it was about, you know, when they first found those things underneath the pyramids that go miles down, right? That was the halls of Amente. And down there, you'll find like all of his stuff, all of his stuff down there. I mean, he has like halls of records. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, in there, right? He was originally Ningazita, but in that story, in the Sumerian stories, right? It was erected to him. So Enlil and his brother Enki, you know, they were both agreeing that they needed to mark something, because they said in the past, in the future, people will ask who built it, when, and why. what was a purpose for it. So they had to have it to where it was, they erected it for him. It was like representation. And it was the original face was Nigazita's face. But after the pyramids wars between him and his brother, right, when he lost, his brother Marduk, which is his older brother, he's the one that had it recarved to his son's face. That's why it looks smaller than what compared to the body. And that's how the story goes within the Sumerian stories.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about that real quick, when they're talking about that, way back when, right? If we're talking way back when, that's when when the whole story comes from, where they came back, came hundreds of thousands of years ago, right? That's what in Egypt, that's what you would call Zep-Tepi, in the first time, where, the gods create, the whole creation of everything that was down, and, building civilizations from mud. That's what more or less what they were talking about.
Yeah, and I was just going to interject real quick about the face. How it's clearly smaller. It's been sort of chiseled out, and you can just tell from looking at it that it's not to scale, and so it looks like it has been tampered with. And so that I just wanted to point out that like there's a ton of theories about why and how and who changed what and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, clearly we don't really know. I mean, you can kind of piece together some information and say maybe this, maybe that. But that's all I wanted to say regarding that, because there are a ton of stories, even archaeological stories, that say, oh, every pharaoh that came along wanted to put their own face on it and eventually just chiseled it away. I mean, maybe also maybe not. Like, how far back does that thing go? Who really knows? But
I would have to disagree with that, because remember, it was buried under the sand for who knows how long. People didn't even know those things were even there, or it was even there, because the way where it sits, kind of like, to me, it almost kind of like it sits like on a lower plateau between the two bigger ones, right? That's where, and it's supposed to face east. And the reason why it faced east is because it faces towards what they call the landing place, right? And that's where the area that now is where you would call Lebanon, right? And Lebanon had the cedar trees and everything like that. I could go, the story goes on, with that, with Baalbek, right, where all the landing. If you remove what so-called the Greeks built, right, the pantheon that's on top of that. It's all those flat blocks that are like super megaton, enormous, right? It just like boggles the mind to even try to move it, let alone cut it, move it, and place it in position. But if you were to have a rocket, you would have to have something that could withstand the heat, and something that thick would suffice. But that's the story, that the Sphinx is supposed to face east, looking on the gaze towards the landing place, which what they call in the story. But other than that, I've looked throughout other stuff, and I have never seen any other, paintings or anything like that, describing that someone's building the second one. I mean, throughout, the times that Egypt's been taken over, from, many different, cultures, throughout time. The Greeks, the Romans, everybody been through there. It was the teaching place after a while, but, still, that's where everybody went for knowledge, you know what I mean? For, to Egypt to get all that. Yeah. I mean, even all the philosophers of Greek and Rome, I mean, all of them went down there. They spent like, 20, 30 years down there, themselves. They even say it themselves. They went down to camp. They talk about all the stuff that's underneath it. I mean, if you just read some of the stuff that they've, talk about in the Ilias, I believe it's in there. And, there's grander things than just the pyramids. Yes, on the surface, they look, in which they are. They're, it's a pretty amazing feat that someone had created something like that. But underneath and around it, it's even more spectacular.
Yeah, I want to point out too. So for more rabbit holing for you, do check out that Dream Stele. And so it was, again, Tutmosis IV, that dream. He wrote in stone on this tablet, massive thing, 15 tons worth, big. Put it between the paws of the Sphinx itself, and suggested that the Sphinx came to him in that dream and told him to remove the sand from it, and it would make him pharaoh. Well, he was pharaoh. He became pharaoh. But I wonder if it was that second Sphinx it was talking about, right? Like, sort of, there's this weird dynamic now where we're looking at, Did they find the second one? Is there a second one? Is there a third and a fourth? Or who knows? As Daryl said, there's a ton, clearly, like bigger and smaller ones. They put them in tombs and all kinds of other things. But we're talking the big mamma jammas, the big massive ones. So I don't know, maybe. I mean, that's the thing, too. And I want to point out, too, so if you're looking at the stream right now, though, notice the two sphinxes are equal sizes and they're facing the directions you described. They're facing sort of that east-west, and one, facing away from each other. And so supposedly that thing in the middle, the obelisk type thing with the hieroglyphs on it, would be representative of that Nile, right? Where you get one on each side facing away from each other. That kind of creates that Lion's Gate aspect of it. Like I said, I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that's where they found it. I'm just saying, like, look, there's some things that first, like I said, first when I was reading about those, I was like, come on, get out of here. There's no second Sphinx. Just the mic mind, right? Like, and then you read a little more, and then you read a little more, and then you find this, and you're like, well, wait a minute now, hold on. Why are we discounting this stuff out of hand, like a Newsweek article fact checking this? When, well, how about we dig and find out? Because maybe the second one is there. I don't know. This is wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been chasing that. There's been a lot of researchers that have been looking for that thing, looking for a second one. Like I said, a lot of people believe in the duality, like the picture that you're showing behind you. You know what I mean? That they believe, and they show it too. Different pictures and stuff like that, and you do. There is a lot of different Sphinx around the world. I do believe that myself. Like some of the ones that may have been created somewhere else. You know what I mean? And it's just singularities ones. They're not dual either. They're just one big giant one, and it's all over the place. And I do believe that, you know what I mean? Because there's supposed to be one in Bosnia, and there's one they claim to be in Egypt. Because I've been to that spot a few times. You just go over there to the south end, right? And where you go look at it, and it looks like a pyramid, kind of like the way the form of it, you know what I mean? And even almost looks like the same thing around the Sphinx now, where they say it was like water erosion or something. That's what it kind of looks like. But I lost track of something I was going to say, but yeah, I mean, I do believe that there's other ones that are around the world, but like there's ones that are even not even got a male's head, or a man's head. Is they have one, line of one that look like they call it the sheep-headed Sphinx. They're all in front of the Karnak temple. There's a whole line of them before you go enter the Karnak temple like that as well. People, once that I'm pretty sure they've seen it like that, but nothing like you're saying, something massive like that. That's the big mamma jammas, if you would, like you were saying, the Sphinx, but the original one, and then the old writings that I've followed and all the ancient stuff that I've seen. I've only seen where the original one is from Egypt. That's the original one. What comes afterwards, and you see the ones now, they might have been smaller, even, in a lot of in a lot of museums over in Egypt, you find some of the smaller ones. They're dedicated to certain pharaohs or whatnot, but nothing like the one that's sitting out there.
Yeah, well said. Well said, all that. Would it surprise you if they dug one out of the desert in the next 10 years?
It wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, I would be surprised, because I've tried to find that, They first thought it was on another plateau, believe me, if you research that and see how many different teams have been, dug different places when they thought. One was they looked like a mound, kind of like covered in sand. So they digged in the area. One of them, they didn't even want to let them dig in the area. There was a problem with, you were talking about, the guy that was controlling all this stuff over there. I can't remember his name right now. But
Zahi Hawass.
Yeah, he was the guy. Say again?
Zahi Hawass.
Yeah, there you go, Hawass. Yeah, he was always someone that, if someone found something, of course, I understand that, it belongs to Egypt, right? And it is. But at the same time, people would want to know. He denied all the doors that were in the Sphinx. You could see them all over from ancient pictures. When they first took pictures of him, like the one that's behind the I think it's the right ear. right? There's like a little door. There's one doorway in the head that they filled it with cement. And then I do believe along the legs, you know what I mean? Along the tail side, there's a couple doorways that go down, but they have all gated off. Down below that, it was supposed to be like some knowledge. It's a hallway. It's a hall of records down there too. But man, like who knows if that's been? I don't say it would even be plundered because, like I said, people didn't even know that thing was there. You know, it's like tripping over a rock and you get buried a little bit, and next you know, you find the Sphinx.
Totally. Well
you
said.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's happened through history too. The Dead Sea Scrolls and all the rest. Like it was a goat farmer threw a rock into a cave and heard pottery shatter. It was like, what was that? He goes in and there's like these 2,000-year-old scrolls that are still there. Like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. We're out of time, brother. We're out of time. If you got anything else, you're welcome to stay. If not, fire as always. You're the best.
No, man, you guys have a good night. You know, it was good. I just wanted to throw what I've got in there, what I ran across, but. Yeah, man, you guys have a good night.
Appreciate the call. Tell Michelle we said hi, and you are the best. You know him, you love him. That's Kelly in Colorado. Look, when I say a good friend for a long time, I mean for like 8 years we've been doing this. This guy's been calling, been helping me with these ideas, been helping us learn about some of the things we may not know about. Kelly, you're the best. Appreciate the call. 702-857-6939. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Love to hear your thoughts. Nobody on the line if you want to jump in here and talk to us about this. What do you know about the idea of a second Sphinx? Be right back.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A tropical tree long known by the colorful name stinking toe is gaining serious attention from food scientists and medical researchers. The tree, native to forests stretching from southern Mexico through the Amazon basin, produces pods containing a pale, flowery pulp that local communities have milled into food for centuries. New research led by scientists in Colombia and Brazil found that the pulp flower delivers 44 grams of dietary fiber and 11 grams of protein per 100 grams, numbers that have nutritionists describing it as a functional food. Bark, leaf, and seed extracts have also shown strong activity against a common bacterial pathogen in laboratory cultures, adding a medical dimension to this largely overlooked tree. Turning now to the ancient world, a Roman shipwreck resting in shallow water near a small island off the coast of Croatia is rewriting what we know about early maritime technology. The vessel, dating to around 170 BCE, was coated in pine pitch to protect its hull from seawater, and that coating has survived more than 2 millennia as a kind of chemical time capsule. Researchers found that one section of the hull contained a mixture of pitch and beeswax, a combination described in ancient texts and linked to known shipbuilding traditions in southern Italy. Trapped pollen grains within the coating are now helping scientists trace where the vessel traveled during its working life. And finally, a new brain imaging study out of The Ohio State University is offering fresh insight into what makes human cognition unique. Researchers scanned the brains of 42 children between the ages of 3 and 9, along with 28 adults, and found that language processing and theory of mind, our ability to understand what others think and feel, operate as completely separate systems even in the youngest children studied. Scientists had theorized these two abilities might begin as overlapping functions that gradually diverge, but the data showed no such developmental shift. The separation, it appears, is present from the very start. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Indeed. Thanks for hanging out with us. Fire calls, you guys are the best, as you know. It's weird. Like I said, when you learn something you didn't learn and then you didn't know, and then you kind of dig back into history and you're like, holy crap, there's a lot here. Like, what's going on? What's up? If I missed anybody, just say hi in the chat. I'll say hi back. What's up, Jay in New York? Kelly always blows the noggin up. Indeed, 100%. Like I said, early on, Kelly was instrumental in teaching me a ton of stuff about Egypt and about Zeb Tepi and about Kemet and all the stuff that he's talking about, all the stuff I talk about too. Like I can't, like I always say, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants because I've learned from really, really smart people that have done a ton of great reading in terms of the Emerald Tablets and other things. I mean, this is the point of talking to each other, right? Like Shout out to Robert, the Jane Roberts stuff with Seth, like that Seth material that came up earlier in the chat as well. Like there's just, look, you can't know everything, but look what happens when you talk to a lot of interested, smart people. Suddenly, you start to know more, and maybe not everything, but sharing ideas is what this is all about. If I missed you in the chat, just say hi. I'll say hi back. I see you there, Karen. What's up, Joey, Satya? Here we go. Trouble Minds happening right about now. Well, let's roll it. Final segment. If you want to get in here and talk about the Sphinx, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We're broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. That was a test to see if my audio editing software will edit that out. Tonight we're taking your calls. Look, I'm calling this the other Sphinx. One lion short of a threshold. Why is that? Well, because if you go back again, Tutmos IV, and Linda had some really smart comments about this as well. Shout out in the chat, Dragon Rose, about, how old was this? How old was this? The Dream Stele we're talking about. How deep does this go? Was it older than sort of the prehistorical aspect? It's dated. Again, take these dates for what they're worth, because we're dating stone, and that's really difficult because you're dating biological material on stone in some capacity when you carbon date stuff, and But of course, you're also doing the other Egyptology work of reading hieroglyphs, and kind of that we talked about the Ramses II being sort of that central aspect of the entire arc of the Egyptian capacity, right? From the Old Kingdom to the Middle Kingdom, and then into, of course, the Ptolemaic stuff with Cleopatra and the rest of that, but kind of the middle space. But anyway, I digress. Basically, look, this was the date. This is the date we have regarding this. Let me read it. So the Dream Stele, also known as the Sphinx Stele, is an epigraphic stela erected between, again, this is the important part, erected between the front paws of the great Sphinx of Giza by the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Tutmos IV in the first year of the king's reign, and that's supposed to be 1401 BC. Okay, BCE. It used to be BC, now it's BCE, whatever, during the 18th dynasty. As was common in the New Kingdom rulers, the epigraph makes claim to divine legitimization of kingship. And we know this. This is what the pharaohs did, right? They, you're new. I mean, okay, and think about the ultimate hypocrisy of this. We're like, well, we're divine kingship. We will be here forever. And I'm here to replace the old guy. Well, what happened to the old guy? Wait, let's back up. What happened to the old guy? Again, right? Like I said, there are gaps in the human knowledge space, and remembering what happened last Tuesday is tragic. Let me call that tragic. We'll just forget the old guy, out with the old, in with the new. But you get what I mean. Like there's a lot of when you talk about the spirituality of the ancients, there's a lot of wisdom there, but there's also a lot of blind spots. I mean, like the divine rulers, they were replaced them like every 12 years when somebody passed from chipping their tooth or something, right? I mean, not to be crude, but these things did happen. But anyway, so like I said, I was surprised to find that not only is this Filippo Bondi team, which, look, I'm a fan of new technology when it comes to this type of stuff, when it comes to finding information. Okay, let's go. LFG, as they say, let's freaking go. Let's find out what we're missing. Because look, if we are gatekeeping a lot of these old ideas based on old technology, we are like missing the forest for the trees. And as I've always said too, in the archaeological aspect or the anthropological aspect, can I say it properly? Anthropological aspect of humans and learning where we came from, we miss so much because we basically know like 1/10 of 1%, in my opinion. You can't dig up the entirety of a continent to find all the information, right? You just can't. It's an impossibility as part of this. And so we're dealing with so little information when it comes to a lot of these spaces and ideas and in ancient ways that, everything's a ritual artifact. And shout out my buddy out there. Like he spent some time as an archaeologist in North America going around on digs, and he was digging stuff out of the ground, right? With his hands on teams. They had plans, all this stuff, right? And he always said to me, he's all, Mike, what strikes me as just nuts when it comes to this stuff is that nobody looks at it outside of the box. If they find something they don't know what it is, everything gets labeled a ritual artifact. That's just what it's called. And it's like, okay, we don't know what this is. We'll just put it in the ritual artifact box. Okay. Can you imagine how much over the course of the last 500 years have been sort of stowed away in a back closet, not in a museum, in a ritual artifact box that might be mind-blowing? You get what I'm saying. Tons of stuff here in play. Look, I don't know the answers, but I do know that, like I said, shocking to me, a second Sphinx maybe is now in play. The further I dig, the further it becomes compelling to me, to my mind's eye. So I don't know. What do you believe about it? What, have you heard of this? Do you think that they actually found this? Do you think they'll actually let anybody dig it up? And then, of course, what does it mean if they do or don't or can or can't or whatever? Is there a third or is there a fourth? I don't really know. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-857-6939. Anything to add, James? We got somebody on the phone line that we'll go back to in a moment. And welcome back. Lots in play. I don't know. You're gonna go all Sphinx on us, James? Let's do it.
Well, just going back to what you were talking about with objects being classified as a certain thing when, there's no obvious way to classify them. I've heard this about just all kinds of structures over the years, pyramids and other places, mounds, just any place where it's a mystery of what it may have been. They're, from what I've heard anyway and read, they're called, either tombs or again, ritual sites or sort of temples to religious or, ceremonial that kind of stuff. But then in some of the places that are said to be tombs, there are people that say, well, we never found a body in this place. So how is it a tomb? And you hear that over and over again if you look into a lot of these places. And I'm not saying I know who's right or wrong on that because I haven't been there. But, if you get enough people talking about this and you get, all these differing opinions, how do we know what's going on there? And just real quick on the whole, is there or is there not a Sphinx, whether there is a second Sphinx, whether there is or is not, there's still the idea of it. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show here, that's fascinating because, again, you have this one that we can all see, and then there's this other one that we don't know if it exists or not. And so it's almost like there's the essence of a Sphinx that is existing in the minds of people and or in this one place.
Yeah, well said. And again, back to this, in between the paws of the Sphinx, I don't know how many times I have to say it, the Dream Stele depicts two, not one, facing away from each other, again, geographically, east and west. It's two-dimensional, so you can't really say. But if one's facing this way, then you expect the other to be facing that way. And the middle part may or may not represent the Nile River. And that's exactly how we're describing this in terms of Filippo Bondi and how they've discovered this second Sphinx. Like I said, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying I'm open to the technology. Let's see what we can find out, and let's push forward. I mean, the old way of thinking and the old gatekeeping. Look, I understand that you don't want to, if you're Zahi Hawass, like you don't want to just turn everything upside down to every wisecrack in the nation or in the world, me included. Let's listen to Michael Strange about Egyptology, not me. Look, I get it. And I'm not saying I know anything more. I'm saying that this is interesting, that maybe this has been misinterpreted. I don't know. Let's take a second look at it. And, you don't have to be Zahi Hawass. There's many, many people that have spent their lives digging in Egypt. Many, many people. Like hundreds, thousands, probably thousands of people that have spent their lives digging in Egypt, maybe tens of thousands. There's people out there digging with them, right? What the Indiana Jones say, the Sala was like, it's, they only hire strong backs and pay pennies. It's as if the pharaohs have returned, right? Like there's people out there digging that aren't, technically tenured archaeologists or whatever. I mean, come on. There's so many people out there that have seen these things, that are doing these things, that there's different ways to interpret this. And Eric von Daniken, again, rest in peace. Whether you believe ancient astronaut theory or not, or, dabble in it or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a different way of looking at the information we have. And I think that's incredibly important. And that's why I talk about these ideas the way I do, because I don't know. But I do see that our interpretation aspect of the academic, tracing way back, is sort of the gatekeep, right? I mean, I get it. Knowledge is power and all the rest. But also, by the way, when you democratize knowledge and sort of just let all the data out, maybe people are going to find some things that will shock you. Because as a data analyst, just from putting that hat on and me being the guy that I am, kind of trying to put pieces together, and that, that people would call me a filthy conspiracy theorist. But suddenly you start to see some patterns, and some of these patterns may actually bear fruit. Who knows? And if they don't, that's okay too. It's just, I don't want to go meet with the Egyptian president or prime minister or whatever. Like, it's not that. Let's talk about it amongst regular people. What are we noticing as patterns? And, the Sphinx, the Lamassu, which I want to shout out Kelly too. He was talking about the other things, the Sphinx-like creatures. They're in the write-up. It's called a Lamassu. Like these other things that go back to the space of Gilgamesh and Babylonian and the Akkadians. And I'm telling you, there's some cool stuff here. There's some cool connections that can be made that maybe haven't been made. So let's think about what it is and what comes next. The question tonight, have you heard of a second Sphinx? Second, do you think that Filippo Bondi and team actually found it? Third, do you think they'll actually dig it up or allow anybody to? Fourth, would you like to talk about something else instead? I prefer this, but because of course I did the rabbit hole. But you tell me, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Let's go to the phone line. You're on Troubled Minds. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Theo. I am from Philadelphia.
Theo from Philadelphia. Welcome to Troubled Minds. What's up, brother? How are you?
Oh, not too much, man. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Just having a good time. This is as you know, ancient Egypt for me is one of those things that it pulls at some heartstrings, like going back deep into history. There's a lot there, and it's so complex. I just love thinking about it, and I love talking about it, as you can tell.
Yeah, actually, mostly I just wanted to kind of, how's my audio right now? Is it okay?
Yeah, you sound great. You sound great. Coming through loud and clear. That's my phone line, by the way, that I vibe coded that sounds almost as good as Discord. You sound great, man.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I wanted to say that, like, recently I saw this article. There was this article in a paper called Science Advances, and it was about this fungus, and like it's a relatively common type of fungus. It's called Mortiera Stele, if I'm getting that correct. It's kind of hard to pronounce, a little bit long. But it's a common fungus that's abundant in almost every kind of wet soil there is. So it's like not like a rare fungus. It's not something that was like just discovered. But this fungus will actually kind of release proteins that are ice nucleating proteins. And these ice nucleating proteins just go up into the atmosphere, and they serve no other purpose other than to kind of like cause rain. So they're basically like a biological form of cloud seeding, you know?
Okay, this is all news to me. This is amazing. Is it at scale, or is it sort of like micro versions of this?
It's at scale. No, it's at scale. It's a very common occurrence, apparently. But I want my point to be that this is a very, very common occurrence that has been happening in front of us for the past probably billion years. And we've never noticed it until now. It's just now that academics like finally figured out, you know, like this one fungus is producing this one protein that actually nucleates ice in the atmosphere that causes rain. So just like one of those things where just how arrogant is academia when they think that they have everything figured out and they haven't modeled weather accurately at all because they were not including this one fungus that produces a ice nucleating protein.
Yeah.
How arrogant is it of academia to think that, like, we have all of ancient history figured out? It's just, I don't know. It's like one of those things that kind of grinds my gears.
They're speaking my language, and that's exactly why I talk about this stuff. And again, you don't have to go after anybody in particular. That's like I said, that's just not my way. But I think the institution.
Oh, yeah. I'm not trying to go after like any academic in particular. I'm just like trying to go through the stodgy kind of like.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I have the credentials to back it up. When credentialism, I think, is like kind of like the downfall of any sort of intellectualism. It's a sort of religion for people who don't have religion. Like, I worship, the fact that like I attended an institution and I am talking to all the right people, and I have like a actual degree at a university, and I am head of my department. Therefore, I am correct.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where I just think there's like, oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're preaching to the choir with me anyway, and I think it's important to recognize that there are. I think the larger institution of knowledge itself has intentionally been not democratized. Like, we didn't prioritize reading very, back to the Dark Ages and beyond. It's like the priest class forever, going back to as far back as you want to go. They were the ones to get the knowledge and to interpret it to the masses, because that's the way you control people. And back to the heart of what I'm always talking about, the control mechanism aspect of being human is very much that. And all that space is converging right now, because look, the AI acceleration, the ability to democratize information. By the way, it's an interesting point, kind of like the Library of Alexandria aspect. Somebody just, with AI, went and ripped 100 million scientific papers. I'll find it. Shout out Brian Romley. Remley, I think is how you say it on Twitter X. But basically, like, you can not paywall anything now. Like they're like, well, here it is. Like, go get it. But even so, like much of that stuff has been accessible, but much of it has also been paywalled for different journals, different publications, all the rest of this. And so suddenly imagine if you just took all the information we had and you just threw it out there, and everybody had like a super wizard AI in their pocket. Imagine the stuff we could find out, because let me tell you what, like a dedicated 14-year-old with some extra time after their homework can do an amazing amount of information, or let's say parse an amazing amount of information in 2026. And this is what democratizing knowledge looks like, and information. And look, I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. But I think, as you're describing, there's going to be, we got a backlash here, because the old institution wants to hang on to what they have. And what that is old narratives. That's old technology. That's the old way of thinking, which we should not eschew entirely. But we should also embrace the new stuff, because let me tell you what, the new stuff is probably going to blow our minds. I'll shut up now. All yours.
Oh, no, I would absolutely agree with you. The one point I would add is that, fun fact, old Theo, way back in the day, used to be a copy editor. I used to work for a company that I probably shouldn't name, so I'm not going to name it. But the company basically only existed as a sort of outsourcing company for Elsevier and McGraw-Hill. The publishing industry is, or specifically the academic publishing industry, is one of the dirtiest dirtiest industries there is. If you look into it, it's a lot of really strange monopolies that are like backed by really strange money. For example, just, look into Ghislaine Maxwell's dad and find out what he did with publishing in the United States for academic textbooks in the country. It's a very, very strange and sordid story. But that's beside the point. But academic knowledge is purposefully gate-kept and only allowed to be interpreted in the specific set of ways that certain people approve of it. And I don't think people understand how much there's a top-down control of it. I think all academic knowledge should be free, and that is one of the great parts of the internet, is that you can actually find almost anything you want to if you look hard enough. But there is definitely an attempt to censor that as much as you can and not make it bottom up. But yeah, that's my point of view.
It's a great point and well taken. And I agree. And probably many of us here agree. And look, there's nuance there. I mean, you can't just be like, I'm a master mathematician because I think so. No, I mean, you got to know what you're talking about, but certainly,
I mean, you have to like have some level of understanding, but at the same point in time, like you have to let the information be free to anyone. My point, like, even if the dumbest person in the world says the sky is blue, that doesn't mean they're wrong,
Right. Right. or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, the most exciting part about may you live in interesting times, the modern time, is that democratization of knowledge. It's coming, and I'll find it again. If you guys are on X and you follow Brian Remley, you should. He not just him. Many people have posted it, but somebody cracked into these databases and were like, well, guess what? You used to have to pay for it. Here's all of it. Now, there's probably a bunch of noise in there because, people have to write their thesis and, for their doctorate and all kinds. I mean, but you got to kind of come up with something semi-novel to kind of get through the space. You can't just do what the dude did before you type of thing. So, like, I get that. And so there's going to be a ton of noise there. But also, there's going to be so much gold in that archive of, like, millions and millions of papers that have been paywalled to this point. I'll find it. I'll link it. Join the Discord, shameless plug, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. I'll drop it in the after show chat. Go check it out. And this is the type of stuff that excites me about the future, about the present and the future, is that democratization of knowledge is happening. So let's do our best with it. Let's spend some hobby time. Let's spend some professional time. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I would highly recommend anyone who doesn't know about it. Anna's Archive is a free public library on the internet. Probably one of the best sources of information you could ever go to because it's got almost everything. Largest public library there is in the world, as far as I know.
And the other one is the one that's been paywalled. So like I said, I'll drop it in the thing. I'll drop it in the chat too, so you guys know what I'm talking about. But this is exciting to me. Like let's LFG, let's freaking go and let's figure something out. I mean, this is the point. And this is what Troubled Minds has always been. Look, like you and I, different people, live all the way across the country from each other, see the world in similar ways, but different ways. But let's talk. Let's consider what we know and what we don't know, and let's have a good time. I mean, recognize the value of what we've done over the years as part of these conversations is immense. It's one of those things where it just doesn't happen anymore. We've been trained to sort of be antisocial. We've been trained to be judgmental. We've been trained to be binary in the way we think. It's either this or it's that. It's the zero-sum game I'm always talking about. But that's why I love to be here. And that's why I love hanging out with individuals like you. You were amazing. The official poet of Troubled Minds, not to put you on the spot. If you got a Sphinx poem, we'd love to hear it. If you don't, that's okay too.
I did not have time to write a poem, but I did want to say, I don't think it matters that much if there is a second Sphinx. Because the fact is, any of us right now, you can build a third Sphinx in your backyard. Nobody's stopping you.
That's true. 100%.
So everyone just, build your own Sphinx, man.
There you go. And if you got a backyard big enough, build a big Mamba Jamba. Make it so big, the ancient astronaut theorists have to say yes. You're the best, Theo. What else you got?
Toodles. No, just that.
Just that. Right on. And that is fire. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. Shout out to the Rumble crew over there. They're all stoked that you called in, as am I, as are we all. Appreciate you very much. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon, and take care.
Great talking to you, Tools.
You as well. We love him. Theo in Philly, the official poet of Troubled Minds. And this is, how you become the official anything at Troubled Minds, by the way? You just call and you do something, and then you are. That's it. It's very simple. Very simple. Good. Look, I think Theo thinks very clearly. And that's good. So if more of us can think very clearly and outside of paradigms and outside of binary nonsense, it has to be this or it has to be that. Recognize when you've been gaslighted. It's always been something that's on my mind. And I see it so clearly now because I think about it a lot. Anyway, soapbox for another night. James, anything to add? And let's wrap this up.
Great call from Theo and great calls from everyone and Kelly. And yeah, this is fascinating. I'm just thinking also regarding building a Sphinx in my backyard. I'll have to make it a small one because I live in an apartment complex. I don't want to anger the owners, but that would be hilarious if I did that anyway. Just build a small one. But yeah, this is all fascinating. And I do think, the whole academia thing, that affects so much. That affects, anything to do with what we've been talking about tonight, but also just, I think almost everything, to be honest, and including, the things I think about and talk about all the time, which is all these paranormal things, which are supposedly, don't exist. And yet, as I always say, you can find reports of them happening to people every day, nonstop. So, but yeah, and again, even if there's not the second one, Sphinx there, then why has it been thought about for so long? And again, that image with the two of them facing away from each other, the other thing I was thinking about with that, if these things are sort of symbolic, yes, they're facing away from each other, but if they're symbolic in any way, technically they are still facing each other. You just have to go all the way around the world to be looking at the other one.
James is all going.
What does that make? That makes a line.
Going all Superman on us. Superman the other way around the world. Yeah, exactly right. Let me read this to you as we close this. So Eric says this in the chat. Shout out Eric. He says, there are multiple pyramids, obelisks, pylons, temples, cities. Why would there be just one Sphinx? And I kind of agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but yeah, great stuff there from Eric. And yeah, thank you for having me on as always.
You're the best. No, thanks for being here. You know him, you love him. If you haven't followed James, you haven't bought his book, you're no friend of mine. You got it? You're hurting my feelings. SalsidoParanormal.com, SALSIDO paranormal.com, troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down. It's alphabetical. Follow James. Please, please, please. This is what this is all about. This is about getting together and talking about ideas and sharing, what we may or may not know together. Look, I know a lot of things, but there's a lot of things I also don't know. You see? Two things can be true at the same time. Let's keep learning. Put your foot on the gas. Let's democratize energy, meaning human energy, knowledge, and whatever that means for the future. I think it puts us in a good space. But hey, I'm an optimist. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I know many people would prefer me to just show up every night and go, the end is nigh. It's too sick. I didn't spend all my life learning the things I've learned about myself, about the world around me, about other people, to just go, meh. The end is nigh. Let's do it the other way. Let's think about what if the end isn't nigh. You see? We'll put eschaton in my pocket. The eschatological aspect of the coming days that everybody wants to tell you the end is here. We'll talk about that another time. For right now, let's enjoy being human. Let's enjoy thinking together. Let's enjoy each other's company. Let's consider the things we do know and also the things we don't. If you want to help Troubled Minds, help our friends, troubledminds.org/friends. If you should be on that list, you should be on that list. If you're creating something out there, you got social media. Look, it's an in list, not an out list. I promise you that. There's no conspiracy here. Promise. Send me an email. Help us. Help the show 1 iota. You're on that list. troubledminds.org/friends. Spread the word. Repost us. Do Troubled Minds derivative stuff. Call in once in a while. Help us in the chats, etc. So on. Just help. Be nice. Think about positive energy, positive human energy, and you're helping us. That's it. Listen. Show up and listen every night. All that helps. You belong on that list. We'd love to share the things that you're working on. If you want to help us, other than that, spread the word. Let people know a conversation's happening, but we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We're not going to consider all the political narratives, the binary space of it's either this or it's either that. If it's not that, you're not one of us. You get it? Think about that. Put that in your rotation of thoughts, and then be offended. Be offended that the human aspect of where we started and where we're going has been boiled down to two ideas. And if you're not offended by that, I don't know what will offend you, to be honest. It infuriates me, which is why I do what I do. That's it. Spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we can disagree, we can agree, all spaces in between, and we can still be friends tomorrow. Yeah, that's that. Shout out all the amazing people that have made this show go over the years. You guys float my boat. I hope I do my part for you. Thanks to the new people that are finding us. The algorithm is clicked. Things are happening. Look, I don't know. I can't control any of that crap, but I don't care. Meaning, you notice I kind of just do my own thing. We kind of do our own thing. We march to the beat of our own drum. And let me tell you what, there's some freedom and there's some wisdom in that exact aspect. That's that. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.